But as soon as I step in to fix my teeth, and he was talking, engaging, and he started to say salam alaikum, speaking in a very like Muslim way. And I'm like, are you Muslim? He said, yes, of course I'm Muslim. You didn't see Muhammad, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, okay. I'm like, what about the leaflet there? He said, oh, if people know I'm in Muslim, I'm in trouble. I let I let the da'wah spread like that. I don't have headache. I said, but you're saving people pain. You're helping people, and with by your skill and removing pain. They should pray you and pray you who you are. And he's like, no, I don't want to mix business and religion. That was like, I'm like, okay, khalas. He got it all wrong. And I didn't want to.
All right, so welcome everyone to another episode of Taka Talks. We have with us today our special guest, James Fakmous. James helps Muslims achieve their outsized ambitions without losing their family or faith. And those are heavy words. If you're a high achieving Muslim but still feel unfulfilled, work with him to stop chasing achievements and start experiencing success instead. Now, he authored Before I Do, which is a book I have, 150 plus questions Muslims must ask before marriage. He did this with his wife, Zahra al-Jabri. Now, before you wonder, why do I have a book about Muslim marriage? It's not for me, it's for my son, and not for Murad either. In addition, I also know for a fact James has a PhD in computer science and was a lecturer in machine learning, so he is an AI guy. So welcome, James. And the floor is yours. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Well, I think you did a great job introducing me. So, but yeah, my background is in artificial intelligence. I did my PhD back in the early 2000s. It's scary how far that is now. And basically, I always loved data. I always loved working with data, answering questions with data. My maternal grandmother, passed away from Alzheimer's disease. So I was very interested in using data to really better understand that disease, which we still don't understand very well till this day. And then through my journey, basically, I became chief technology officer of a $30 million health tech startup in New York City back in like 2014, 2015. But, we did all the things that you read on TechCrunch and Mashable and all these places. And I was just not fulfilled. I just didn't feel like I was living to my potential. I felt like it was a lot of BS, especially around AI. And it was hurting my soul, basically. It was really hurting my soul. On the outside, I looked very successful living in New York City with my beautiful wife and children, having a great job, etc. But on the inside, I was feeling shame. I was feeling anger. I was feeling resentment. I was burnt out. And I couldn't reconcile the two. On the outside, I said I'm a Muslim. I prayed. I went to Hajj. I did these things, but I wasn't getting the so-called benefits of being a Muslim, the peace, the tranquility, the fulfillment, those things that I knew that's what I wanted in life. And one day I just quit my job. I was in Kenya with my wife and I quit my job. And here I am today now as I do AI consulting, and I'm a spiritual success coach where I help other Muslims who don't feel valued at work, who feel like they have so much more to give, that they're in the wrong job. They're worried about, oh, I can't quit my job because I have bills and I have a wife and I have children, etc. I help them build up the faith to be able to do extraordinary things, whether it's in their job or as entrepreneurs or as parents or as husbands and wives.
So that must have been a great leap of faith to have just quit your job. Tell us what happened when you did that.
We'll be right back after the break.
Taka Talks brings you stories from around the world that will help you understand how crypto and Islamic finance can change our lives for the better. Subscribe and follow us to keep learning.
Well, like every leap of faith, it's very scary in that when you're standing on the ledge, right? When you're looking out, it's terrifying. Then once I sort of took that step for me, and that's what happened actually, it was a tremendous leap of faith, and I had to lean on my Islamic faith to do this, because we had just signed a lease on a big apartment in New York City. And as you probably know, New York City, all apartments are like closets. So we had this huge place for us and our 3 children at the time. We were in Kenya. We were on a safari in Kenya. We had a big summer vacation. We traveled pretty much to 4 or 5 countries that summer. So I had a big bill waiting for me back home in New York. But while we were in Kenya, in fact, I was waiting to pray Maghrib. I was waiting for the sunset. And I don't know how, like it just came out of me. I was thinking about it, but I never dared to say I want to quit my job because I was worried about my bills and, everything that society tells you, right? Like, and so I stayed quiet, but then it just came out of me. As I was watching the sunset, I just told my wife, honey, when I go back to New York, I'm going to quit my job and I have nothing lined up. I don't know, I don't know what is going to happen. And in that moment, I know that it was meant for me to say that, because immediately my wife said, let's go. I remember that she said, let's go. God will not forsake us. And so God gave me courage through my wife, because I was lacking courage in that moment. And I went back to New York. I quit my job. So it was very scary leading up to that point. Even me telling people I'm leaving was very scary, and I was embarrassed and nerve-wracking, etc. But then it was tremendous freedom. I felt great. It was amazing. The next day, actually, I did it right, but a day or two before my birthday, I quit. And I was feeling great, tremendous freedom, that burden off my back. But then the hard work came, right? How do you keep? Because taking one act of faith, a lot of people do it. A lot of us can take one act of faith, and then how do you stay on the path of faith after that? Right? How do I not jump back and take a job back? They called me, I was like, hey, do you want to come back? I could have said yes, right? Another organization in the Middle East reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to become chief product officer for us in Qatar? And I could have taken that job, and they will have defeated the purpose. The whole point of me leaving was not about the job. It was about me doing what's true to myself and being a true Muslim inside and out. And I had to say no to that. That was very difficult. And then we almost got evicted because I couldn't pay rent. 3, 4 months of rent due, like they're going to evict you at some point, right? And so it was just about, how do I keep taking those steps of faith after the initial one? Because the initial one, you could take it, but a lot of us then crumble right after it. And so how do we keep the faith and keep getting better, right? You want it to get easier and easier and easier. And for me, it took about 8 months, 8 months of me really working on, how do I practically apply Islam? Not just let me go pray at the masjid for 5 minutes and I'm done. Let me read an Islamic book here, or let me go to Umrah for 3 days there. But like, really, how do I integrate that in my life in Manhattan to get outside results, right? Like just how when I see a Steve Jobs getting outside results, or if I see a J.K. Rowling getting outside results, what are they doing? How could they do it? Well, that's fine. Whatever works for them, works for them. What can I tap into in my own spirituality that works for me?
Yeah. So I think I do have a question. So let's backtrack a little bit. Why did you feel unfulfilled in your job? I mean, you would think, you were the CTO of a fast rising startup. This is the thing that everybody wants to do and wants to be. What happened there?
The short answer is, like most of us in the West, at least, I was just chasing achievements. And I confused achievements with success, right? I was a broke student. I went and got a PhD, right? That's an achievement. I got a PhD for free because I got funding, right? That's an achievement. I started my first startup in 2010, right? That was another achievement. So I had all these achievements. And every time I got that achievement, I didn't feel any happier. So I was like, oh, it must be the next achievement and the next achievement. And when I made $10,000 in my business, like, it must be when I make $100,000. And I made $100,000, like, oh, it must be when I make $1 million. And when I made $1 million, it was like, oh, it must be when I make 10 million. And it just kept going and going and going, where I kept chasing these achievements. So when I took this job, this job and started this company, right, the idea was I wanted to help marginalized people in Harlem, where I work, and across the world. But at the end of the day, healthcare inequity is a choice. The reason why we haven't solved healthcare inequity is just a choice. We don't want to solve it because there's big money in inequity, right? And so for me, why at the highest level, why I wasn't fulfilled was because I signed up to solve health inequity, but then nobody around me wanted to do it. All people want to do is have press releases and little prototypes. And the real work is after the prototype, right? You have to get users to use your products. You gotta dig in. Why are they not using it? What are the outcomes that are achieved by using your product versus not using it, et cetera, et cetera. People had no interest in doing that, right? But then at the second level, it was like, yeah, this is just a hoax. I did all this work to get here. And I saw, like, I used to work with the top VC firms, like, and I just see it everywhere. It's just all smoke and mirrors. Nobody is improving the world, as they say. Every company, especially VC-backed companies, falls a million times short of their pitch or of their product description that I've seen, at least in the United States. I'm sure there are exceptions, right? And to me, I didn't want to spend the prime years of my life with children. I didn't want to miss my children at a young age chasing smoke and mirrors. So I think that was the main thing. And then the third one was that people in the company were doing some unethical things, so to speak. Like, they were treating other people poorly. They were treating women poorly. Some people were paid less than others. And I didn't want to be a part of that. And, so to me, those three things really combined to me being extremely unhappy. And of course, you have also, right, imposter syndrome. You are a Muslim, you're a minority. So you already have those insecurities that all Muslims have. And then I had these other realizations on top of that.
And that's the other thing I was going to ask you. Did being a Muslim in that environment, was that tough for you? I know, like, for us, for Murad and myself, at one point, there were VCs that would tell us, okay, you guys have to, for Murad, it was shave his beard, me was take off the niqab, and this kind of thing. And of course, we were like, well, whatever, man. Who cares what you think? Was it difficult on you?
I didn't see it that way. I mean, it was difficult for me because of the dissonance within me, right? In the sense, like, if I knew that God is Ar-Razaq, God is the provider, truthfully, if I knew it truly in my core, not just intellectually, not just saying it to seem cool, right? I could have quit my job a long time ago, but I didn't because I was afraid. So deep down, there was still a lack of trust. So I think it was difficult for me more on that. On the outside looking in, I actually found it as a great opportunity for me as a Muslim. Being CTO, there are very few Muslim CTOs. Being out there, being a public face figure, not just coding, right? For me, it was very important. Like, I made it a point. I prayed pretty much 3 to 5 prayers in the masjid every day. I didn't live too far from the masjid. I didn't work too far from the masjid. So I made it a point. I had a glass office. I made it a point to pray in the glass office with my carpet so people can see me pray, right? To open up the door for others. I made it a point to take the last 10 days of Ramadan off every year, right? I made it a point to just normalize working with a high achieving Muslim and me not having to compromise my faith. I made it a point that we would have no alcohol at our gatherings. So all of these things, I made it a point to treat, and like, everybody that worked on my team and worked for me got paid very well. For example, PhD students get paid, $20,000, $30,000 a year maximum, I think, now maybe with inflation. Like, I was paying some of my PhD, I just called them researchers, $70,000, almost 3 times more. People are like, oh, you're stupid. You could hire 4 people. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'd rather hire 1 person and treat them well than hire 4 broke people and just, like, contribute to the abuse and the exploitation of people, right? So I think from that point, it wasn't difficult. And of course, there were barriers. Were they because I was Muslim? I don't know. I tend not to dwell on that personally. But, some people said no and didn't fund me. And some people didn't take a job with me. But I don't attribute to that. I think it was a great opportunity for me to normalize a lot of things for Muslims that hopefully will come after me, right? Taking Jama'ah off, taking Eid off, those small things that even if I didn't care about them, I tried to put myself in my shoes 10 years ago, right? Or 15 years ago when I was younger and I didn't have much visibility. It'll have been great if I went to university where they give me Eid off instead of me having to fight for Eid, right? And things like that.
Yeah, mashallah, it's very interesting. First of all, I want to make a little correction. The book on marriage still apply to me. I have only one wife, so I don't want to make a full disclosure. So Sharon, for sure, no, she cannot marry more than one, but I can. But alhamdulillah, thank you for the book. What is interesting, and for the audience, we're talking mostly about Muslim living in a non-Muslim country where things are quite challenging, as you mentioned, and I really appreciate you sharing this your view, because when I was back in LA, I would say prior to owning my own business, I had it also very, it was difficult, it was difficult to work with people, telling them, listen, I got to go pray. When I had to go pray, I cannot do such and such, and I need my day off for Jum'ah and all these kind of things. But when I started my own business and with Abdullah back then in LA, and so it was all focused on who we were as Muslim, and it was really centered in being who we are. And so I remember my coffee shop. We had a coffee shop in Los Angeles, in close to USC. And the first thing I did actually is that I had a small library, and we had the translation of the Quran in full English. I didn't want to have the Arabic in order for non-Muslim to be able to open and read and stuff like that. And we had templates, like leaflet about Isa, Jesus is our prophet, and all these kind of things. So, and I recall that when I had the coffee shop, the reason I did that, the reason I did these kind of things, first of all, is to tell them, hey, this is who I am, and this is my library. Welcome to use it. But it's an open library, okay? And you can come and drop a book, and you can also have my books. I mean, the books that I believe in, and the leaflet as well. And one of the reasons that pushed me. So I was selling coffee. That's the only thing I could do, is to sell coffee to people and be friendly with local people. Some of them, they might never have met Muslim. So they were coming and they're like, oh, the guy is praying he's moving table and start doing Allahu Akbar, praying in front of people. So I had my office where I could pray, but I had also the main hall of the coffee shop when we were few brothers, and say, hey brother, where can I pray? I say, pray wherever you want. It is just move some table and let's do it. So the customer was sitting and seeing this prayer taking place and everything. So it was full in. I had no haya, no shyness on being who we are. And then I was going making coffee, espresso to people, and basic food. One of the reasons that really I was pushed into that direction, I would say, but first of all, I wanted to fully live my religion, being my own owner, and I didn't care about selling more coffee or less coffee. It was all about being who I was. And I was triggered by that for one particular event. I was at a dentist office. At the dentist office, while I was sitting in Los Angeles, and I saw a leaflet about Jesus in a Christian way, Catholic, preaching, fine. And I was sitting down, and I knew the dentist was some kind of Arab, so I believe he was a Christian Arab.
We'll be right back after the break.
We believe that the financial system is broken and that our banks and insurance companies don't have our best interests at heart. We've built Takaturn to help us get together as a community to save, earn, and access credit. Join us today and discover how you can grow your savings while helping others.
Christian Arab, which is fine with me. But as soon as I step in to fix my teeth, and he was talking, engaging, and he started to say salam alaikum, speaking in a very like Muslim way. And I'm like, are you Muslim? He say, yes, of course I'm Muslim. You didn't see Muhammad, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay. I'm like, what about the leaflet there? He said, oh, if people know Muslim are in trouble, I let I let the da'wah spread like that. I don't have headache. I said, but you're saving people pain. You're helping people,
Mm-hmm.
and with by your skill and removing pain. They should pray you and pray you who you are. And he's like, no, I don't want to mix business and religion. That was like, I'm like, okay, khalas. He got it all wrong. And I didn't want to, to lecture him on that. But I say, if I ever have my business, I will go all in with who I stand for, And
Mm-hmm.
trust me, we got a lot of people coming to me and they say, brother, if you do that, you're going to lose half of your customer.
Mm-hmm.
Brother, there's so many Jewish around the neighborhood, don't do that, don't. And I was laughing. I said, my provider is a God. So I said, don't worry. So honestly, what happened? We got full house from the day we opened until the day we sold. Full. We had no space to welcome people. That was the opposite effect. People were coming, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. It was packed. And in less than 1 year, we sold the business. It was doing so well. We made 10 times our investment, and we sold the business for different reasons. We wanted to go and live in the Middle East. So yeah, I totally get you and feel you. But alhamdulillah, America was still at the time a place where you could be. And by the way, it was just, we opened our business, I think a year after, I think the day of September 11 or a week after September 11. Can you imagine the pressure?
Of course.
And nevertheless, we went all in with people. They were like, hey, they're going to come and close you down. They're going to do that. No, people were coming on the day of September 11 or the next day, say, giving us flour and say, we like your coffee shop and we want to know more about you. And we distributed the biggest amount of Quran to the people because they wanted to know about Islam. Actually, at the time, they all wanted, and there were no more Barnes and Noble available mushaf. So I had to go and ask some friend at the Saudi embassy to provide Quran, and say, no, we shut down now. We don't want to talk to nobody until further notice. Alhamdulillah, that's So I feel you where you're coming from. Yeah.
I mean, what I think, that's a great story. I think that as Muslims, I think there's different levels to infuse who you are into what you do, right? And first and foremost, right, like that was the math that didn't add up for me, right? The math that didn't add up for me was, if what ultimately matters is God's opinion of me and my standing in the eyes of God, and if I believe that, well, for me to get blessings, etc., you have to pray, you have to do this. If I counted the times that I was aware of God, the minutes, the hours in a day that I was aware of God, versus the minute and hours that I was working, right, they were tiny. Like I would be working 8 to 12 hours a day, but I'm just spending a little bit of much less time being conscious of God. And that math didn't add up for me. I was like, that's a losing battle. Like the only way to do it was to make my worship and my job one. And to do that, and that's what the point of everything is. What's the point of fasting? What's the point of prayer? What's the point of Hajj? If you read in the Quran, all of these, the point is taqwa, right? The reason why I pray, the reason why I fast, the reason why I perform Hajj, right, is to gain greater consciousness and awareness of God, right? And so can I find other ways to do that? That doesn't have to deal with prostrating or making tasbih. Those are good, but I need to expand that as I want to expand my impact on the world. And so for me, the math was just not adding up. And that's why I was like, no, I couldn't be CTO James, Masjid James, House James, just all these different personas that were compartmentalized depending on where I was. And I want to bring them all in alignment and just be one and the same in the board meeting, or in the masjid, or in the MSA, or whatever I was. I wanted to be the same person, speak the same way, behave the same way, regardless of the audience. And that's what the growth required. And basically, when it comes to, well, how do I infuse who I am in what I do, I think there's levels, right? One level is like, yeah, I'm just going to have a pamphlet. I'm just going to share an ayah. I'm going to share a hadith about the Prophet ﷺ in some manner, right? That's a very obvious and very direct approach. Some can do it, some can't do it. But then there are deeper and deeper levels, right? Because then I could just infuse it with, well, the way I do business, right? I'm going to pay people a fair wage, or I'm going to use the best ingredients in my coffee, or whatever it may be, right? And then we could take it a step further, right? Where I am going to try to be a representative of Allah on earth by the way I show up, by the way I act, in all transactions, not just the business transaction, or in the very, for lack of technical term, the very offer, in the very vehicle that I'm providing in my business. So I help a lot of people start their business to gain freedom from their job. And we talk about the offer, right? What is your offer that you're offering? Doesn't matter if you're an AI or if you're an author or whatever. The offer is really, what is the problem? Well, who is your person that you're helping? What is the problem they're facing? What is your solution? And in the solution, right, what is the one thing that you believe that nobody else believes? What is that one thing that God put in you and didn't put in anybody else, that is so obvious to you? And to me, it will make absolutely no sense that you must do this, right? And if you inject that into your offering, whether it's an app, whether it's, I've helped people launch apps, I've helped people launch businesses, I've helped people just become sort of coaches, speakers, etc. That doesn't matter. What is that one thing, that one truth that Allah put in you that you can share openly with others, that will make your product different than any other? Because everything has been done under the sun. How many apps are there? How many books are there? How many movies are there? There are billions and billions of all of these things. What makes it unique? So if you just to go with that, well, it's already been done. Of course, it's already been done. Anything has already been done, more or less, right? But what makes it truly unique is when you put, what is it that I believe with such conviction that God put in my heart that I could put in there, right? So for example, there are many business coaches, there are many coaches out there in the world. Not that many Muslim, I guess, the way I do it, but still there are many. You could, Tony Robbins, whatever, right? But what I believe in, and I don't care what people will say. If somebody said, drop this belief and I'll pay you $1 million to be my coach, I probably won't do it. I'll be like, I'm not going to drop this belief because I believe in this so much. To me is, the greater success you want, the deeper faith you must have. That's my core belief. Like, doesn't matter the tactics. I don't care if you learn AI. I don't care if you learn time management. None of these matter if you don't have faith. And that's what I believe. That's my core belief, that I don't care what happens, I'm always going to stick with that, even if I'm going to sink or swim with this idea in my product. And I think a lot of Muslims actually play down that belief that they have. They spend a lot of times talking themselves out of that belief, trying to imitate, Alex Hermosi or whoever it is that you admire in your space, A16Z, Ben Horowitz, whatever, as opposed to saying, no, I'm going to double down on this is what I believe in. And that's what magnetizes, that's what makes you attractive. That's what makes you have an opinion. In a sea of copycats, you're going to stand out. You're going to be a lighthouse. As an entrepreneur, as an author, as a speaker, as a parent, it does not matter. And that's what
it's kind of a very interesting, actually, James, that you share this. Mashallah, as Muslim, as you mentioned, our identity, I remember when I was in the US, even in Australia, different country, I look at the nations, those very young nations, America is maybe 500 years old, 400, how many years? And you look at Australia was like 300, how many years? Like, I mean, even less, like 200 years old, I think, yeah. And we carry ourselves a culture, a heavyweight culture of like 1,400 years of, being like in forefront of alchemy, science, you name it. We were like, the Ummah was like dominating the entire world at one point. Even there is some recall of some first Muslim traveling all the way to America. And that you see those Native American actually being exposed to Muslim, and they are Muslim actually. Some tribes are Muslim. Very little people are aware of that. So myself, when I was in the US and I was looking at immigrant, most of the time immigrant come as refugee. They're afraid of identifying themselves as Muslim, even though they're successful. They don't want to mention. And I was last few months ago in TechCrunch I had to yell salam alaikum for the people to answer me my salam because I knew they were Muslim. I look at them, I said, this brother is Muslim. He's not giving me my right. And I'm going to tell him salam alaikum loud enough that he can. And he's like, oh, salam, how do you know I'm Muslim? I say, you see me, obviously that I'm Muslim. Stop by, say salam. Me, it was a 50-50. I didn't know Indian from, and Pakistan, but I noticed. So this, immigrant coming for making money, not only, just focusing on, like you say, the risk of becoming successful and lining up with the common culture. But I was telling them, bro, you carry gold in you. Just express who you are as Muslim, even as little as you can have. Everybody, like I say, has level, but show it. And you will see, you will have rizza, people will start respecting you even better.
Mm-hmm.
They will actually, American actually are easygoing. And, for them, they're like, wow, you have a culture, we have nothing. What do we have? Extermination of the native Indians, taking over of California. What
Mm-hmm.
do they have to sell you? Blood. Except that, what did they produce? Nothing. Even now, today, we're talking about they're producing nuclear powerhouse. Who cares? That's all you're good at. So we have, mashallah, build hospital, university. We build culture, science. So we carry this beautiful religion. So I'm like, be happy and be at any level. Who cares about the CEO that you're working under? If he see you as Muslim and you share a little bit of your culture, trust me, they will love to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate that we see so many successful people. And that's why, mashallah, you step in to tell them, listen, you have better than success. You have your religion can align with your success and show you that you could be a strong, hand-to-hand believer and successful man in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, America is still a country where there is some kind of fairness. I don't care about the actual, I would say, what they call it, foreign policy. There's two different things. The foreign policy in one hand that is managed by few, and the internal, the country itself, where the people are great by nature. They are very nice, easygoing. We're not talking about stubborn people who don't want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And very open-minded. That's the nature of the American way. This is the American way. So if you have a good things to share in your culture, in your behavior and stuff like that, they are willing to take, they are willing to learn, they are willing to do. So I was like kind of shocked. That's why I like first immigrant, I understand is feeling like, I have to, make myself blend. No need. You can blend and be who you are at the same time and be successful. Can you share some of those examples? I'm sure you've been coaching people. Could be American who are like actually Muslim American who embrace the culture much better, and they're like, take me as I am. In your case, mashallah, you're an American born. You have no complex. You're like, hey, this is who I am. And you have like a new generation, first immigrant coming, trying to blend and having this. Can you share some maybe of your experience with coaching people and how they define themselves in this melting pot that could be beautiful opportunity for Muslim to shine?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that the goal of my coaching is really to go back to. I want to move away from just talking about the Islamic golden age. Where I want to go is inspire a new golden age, right? And to do that, right? Of course, you want to embrace history. You want to understand it. You want to be, knowledgeable of your own history. Otherwise, people are going to erase you, right? Like in the United States, for example, Malcolm X is systematically erased from schools, from like anytime there's a historical figure day. I always encourage my children, you should be Malcolm X, because I guarantee you, nobody's going to be Malcolm X for my son, for example. And so it's very important for us to know our culture and our history of scientific contributions. There's one great book by a Christian Arab called George Saliba. He's a professor at Columbia University. Look it up. He has multiple books on sort of the Islamic foundation to science. And it's an amazing book. It's a little scholarly, academic, but, for those that are interested. But how are we going to get to, I just want to put two distinctions here about the importance, like we admire the golden age, but we're not willing to do the work. We just want to talk about it, and we're not willing to do the work to bring it back. We just want to talk about it in the past. And that's fine. For some, that's what they want to do. That's great. But I don't want to be part of that conversation. And the two things that I want to highlight is, number one, I'll start with the obvious one. Number one, it's focused on innovation. Like you talk about the soap, you talk about the sundial, you talk about universities, you talk about endowments, you talk about all these things. These are innovations that did not exist. Whereas today, we face the problem of just halalifying businesses. Halal Uber, halal Airbnb, halal Kickstarter. And sure, that's fine. Like those need to exist at some point, but not all of us, not 100% of our minds are just taking actually most likely a failing business model, right? And just slapping a green logo and a crescent on it and calling it halal, right? Like, the halal YouTube. One person reached out to me, he's like, I want coaching on building like a halal YouTube kind of thing for whatever. I was like, good luck. I know that there might be reward in that. I'm going to try to get my reward in some other way, but I'm not interested in just making a halal YouTube. That's not what I'm here for. And so what are the problems that we are facing that need ingenuity and things that I need to solve that's right in front of me? I'm not thinking about scale. I'm not thinking about VC. Just in front of me, there's a problem. What do I need to solve it? And that brings me to the second point. And this is what truly differentiates. And until we achieve this, I don't think in critical mass at least, we're not going to be able to replicate the golden age, is that they achieved worldly success in the pursuit of God. What does that mean, right? Think about the sundial, right? Massive engineering, mathematical, astronomical contributions in there. Like if you just to break that down, that's like books and books and books, right? But how did it come to be? It came to be because there were Muslim men and women who read the ayah, وَحَافِظُوا عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ وَالصَّلَاةِ الْوُسْطَى, and preserved the prayer, especially the middle prayer. And they're like, God is telling us that I need to preserve. There's this very important middle prayer. I wonder when this is. I want to preserve it. I need to figure out when it is. Unfortunately, there was no Adhan app back then, so I couldn't just pull out my phone and enter my zip code. So they went about, well, how are we going to figure out this prayer time? And guess what? It's actually very difficult to figure out what Asr is, especially when the mathematical foundations established by the Greco-Romans was incompatible. It was not sufficient to be able to calculate a variable prayer time based on latitude and longitude. And that's what we need, right? That's why Asr in Mecca is not the same time as Asr in LA, right? It's because of where we are on the sphere. And basically, the Muslims had to answer this question, had to redesign or reintroduce new mathematical and geometry foundations to be able to even perform the calculations, then everything else that ensued. And these men and women became very successful. They became advisors to the king, and they did other things as part of this invention. It wasn't like they did this and they went to sleep. Like they were advisors, they were scientists, they did other things. They're business people. And that's the key. And that's what we lack right now, is that it's either or. Either I am pursuing the lower life, the dunya, or I'm in the masjid, hiding, and I'm just reading Quran, and I'm letting go of the dunya, right? And sure, again, do we need everybody? We need people to do that. That's fine. You could just be a hermit and do these things if you want to do that. That's great if you're called to do that. But not all of us should do that. And not all of us should feel that there's this false choice of dunya versus afterlife, lowly life versus afterlife, eternal life, right? There is a way to blend them together. And until we do that, it's going to be very, very difficult to, it'll be very, very difficult to be able to recreate the type of innovation, the type of lasting impact that we're talking about in this time and age. But that's my aspiration. I want to inspire more Muslims and coach more Muslims to help them on that journey to get there, as I'm marching towards that myself.
No, that's fantastic. Actually, it's fascinating what you just said, that really true success is going to come when we're doing something in the pursuit of, pleasing Allah, and it's innovative. It's kind of the two things that you need to put together. Now, I know So in your work as a spiritual business coach, because I think that's essentially what it is, what are some of the challenges that you see Muslim entrepreneurs face the most? I mean, let's pick one that is just kind of across the board common, and what is the fix?
I'll say the most common is the rise of what I call the short form guru. Nowadays, because right now, right, you're an entrepreneur. When you are an entrepreneur, especially if you're a novice, if you're a novice entrepreneur, everything's going to seem urgent and a life threat to your business and your well-being. Everything. This email, this app is not working, the Wi-Fi is slow, etc., etc. That's just the nature of somebody who is new into this game, right? And so what they do? They think that the solution is outside of them. We think that the solution is somewhere out there. Somebody must know the solution. Somebody has been there before. Somebody has a degree or MBA or something is going to help me, right? And who do they look for? Is the Twitter masters. They'll put how to make $1 million in 4 steps, right? Find a problem, make a page, open Stripe, charge people $1 million. This is how I made $1 million, right? And now what happens is they look at this advice, and I'm exaggerating, but they will look at this advice or other advice that's really not tailored to them, right? And they try to apply it, or they look at it and think about it for a little bit. And what happens is it doesn't work. And they're like, well, it should work. If this guy worked, why doesn't it work for me? And now you feel bad about yourself. When it's not you, this advice is bad advice, right? Like you cannot make, the key to making $1 million, right? The key to making $1 million isn't about putting up a web page and setting up Stripe to collect payments. It's what are you doing in between those 2 steps? What are you thinking? What are you believing? What are you saying to yourself in those 2 steps that is going to allow you to show up in the best way to make this business work, right? It's not about the and that's the problem is that, and that's why even when I taught, at business schools, etc., a lot of people love case studies, right? In business school, they teach a case study where they take an Apple, they say, okay, here's the case study of Apple, right? And all you have to do is copy the case study of Apple to be Apple. And clearly that does not work, right? No MBA graduate has ever created an Apple, right? Because for every Apple, there were 1 million other wannabe Apples that failed. And when you do a case study, only look at the success, you're dismissing everything else that didn't work. And why didn't it work? And all those things. And so basically, that's number one, is just really listening to the short form gurus and making you, number one, thinking that this is what you need to succeed. And number two, it makes you feel bad. And when you feel bad, it's going to make you act bad. And when you act bad, you're going to feel bad. And you're just going to go into this spiral over and over. So that's one. Number two, I think the most common problem with Muslims is, and I'll say probably Muslim men more than Muslim women, honestly, is too much knowledge, not enough action. Too much knowledge, not, let me read this book, let me study this, let me get a master's degree, let me do this, let me get a certification before I make a move, right? They're just, they at least in the US, right, or in Europe, they want everything to be sort of spoon-fed to them. And that defeats if you want something spoon-fed for you, then you don't want to be an entrepreneur. And that's okay. That is perfectly okay. Like, entrepreneurship is not as glamorous as TechCrunch makes it seem. It is not. You have to make it work for you. Otherwise, you're going to end up just leaving a job to work at a worse, low-paying job for yourself, right? And basically, if you want all the steps to be as predictable as possible, like in university, right? You come in, they give you a syllabus. If you do this and do this and do this and do this, you'll get an A. And I used to be mad. I was like, hey, professor, I did this. You gave me A-. Why? Give me an A, right? I'll go and argue with them and they'll give me an A. Great, right? It's a finite game, finite situation, clear rules. Entrepreneurship is an infinite game with undefined rules. And that's why you have to set your own spiritual rules so you don't slip, because there are no rules. Right? And it becomes now, well, what are the rules that I want to impose such that me obeying the rules consciously is better than me making a buck? Like you said, I am not trying to sell coffee, more coffee, less coffee. Right? Because think about it this way. Uber, I don't know anymore. Uber used to lose $1 billion a quarter. $1 billion a quarter. And let's not talk about all the negative things that Uber has contributed in the world. We'll leave that alone. Everybody knows that. Now think about it this way. If somebody allowed me to lose $1 billion a quarter, wouldn't I seem visionary? I'll be visionary too. All of us will be visionary. My 7-year-old daughter will be visionary. Everybody will be visionary. If you allowed me to, like, what are the standards? If I'm losing $1 billion a quarter, $4 billion a year, right? $4 billion a year. That's like a GDP probably of some country out there, right? And so what are your inner rules, right? Your inner rules that you're going to have that by being in alignment with these spiritual rules, that's winning the game. Because in this world, everything wants you to be out of integrity. So you being in integrity, you have won. Doesn't matter how much money you make. And the third one that I'll just say in passing is Muslim entrepreneurs, because in the US, because of we're enamored with the VC culture, hyper growth culture, etc., they don't know how to run a profitable business. I am baffled by how many unprofitable Muslim businesses are out there. And that's a direct violation of the Sunnah. The whole point of entrepreneurship is freedom. And if you are unprofitable, how are you free? You're indebted to somebody, right? I don't know who it is, but you are. And so we need to figure out how do we make it profitable. And we want to make it profitable, number one, because like that's just how the world works. Like before, that's what you built something people liked and you sold it, even if it was just cutting wood, right? That's it. Very simple. And you don't need to make $1 million. It could be just $1. But what has happened is when you are not profitable, you're hurting your employees, you're hurting your community, you're hurting the ummah, right? Because think about it this way. If you're not profitable, you're not paying zakat. If you're not paying zakat, you're not circulating that money. And you have to remember, again, when we talk about the spiritual rules, many venture-backed companies, many public companies are unprofitable because they mess up their books. For tax reasons, I am unprofitable, but they're really making a lot. Amazon is unprofitable, has been unprofitable because they do unethical, well, what we would consider as Muslims unethical things, right? It's perfectly legal, but my spiritual standard is higher than the American tax code, right? My standard should be higher than this very, as you said, new and naive tax code. And so when it comes to my advice to people, to Muslim people, is to come in with the intention of building a highly profitable business. And one way to create a forcing function to do that is very simple. Especially now, like they have these new age banks, I don't know, and maybe I'm sure in the Middle East as well, but in the US, right, where as soon as money comes in, I'm going to take, if you're new, if you're under $500,000, I will say take 10%. Take 10%, put it in the profitability account. You don't touch it. It's there. Now, technically, you could do two things. I'm not going to go into the fiqh of this and the jurisprudence of this, but what I want you to consider is this. You take that 10%, you put it away, you call it profit. Now you do everything else with the 90% that you made. You pay your bills, you figure it, you make it work. Because you will make it work. If I told you, make your company run on 90% of what you're making, you will. And if I gave you 100%, you will. And I give you 110%, you will. So it does not, it's really, the amount of money is going to dictate what you're going to do. It's very easy. You take that 10%, you put it in a profit account. And now you make the intention to pay zakat on that. You pay 2.5% on those profits. Either once a year passes and you have the nisab, what they call, meaning that the money has accrued maturity, right? Or you just do it month by month. Every month, I'm just going to donate my 2.5, right? I'm going to really not enter my credit card and do it. I'm going to do it as in I'm going to take that money out and I'm going to hand it to somebody. Or I know somebody who's going to hand it to somebody. Like, ensure that the money is truly redistributed and watch how your business profits just explode. Uncontrolled, like you will not be able to control your profits. Why? Because that's God's promise. That's God's promise. For every grain, there'll be 7 grains, and on each grain there is 100 more, right? I'm mistranslating the Sumbula, but you get what I mean. Right? That's a promise. It's a mathematical promise. You could do VC math or you could do spiritual math. It's your choice.
MashaAllah. Very good. Very well said. Well said, brother.
I think I'm going to have to do some accounting tomorrow. I have another question. So, entrepreneur depression is a big thing, right? It applies to everybody because this, especially for startups, because there is such a roller coaster journey when you're up one day and you're down another day. As Muslims, how do we deal with this?
Well, it's everything I share is very simple. I've never claimed I have a secret ayah or a secret hadith. That's why people need coaches. That's why LeBron James has a coach. That's why Michael Jordan had a coach. That's why all the best players, Kylian Mbappe, whatever, has a coach. Why? Because you need somebody to hold you accountable to do the simple things that you know you have to do, but you don't want to do, or you're afraid of doing. In our case, it's more fear. And so, as a startup entrepreneur, I could give you the simplest answer. The simplest answer as an entrepreneur and the ups and downs is to take a step back. It's not that big a deal. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That's what Allah tells us. Tells us we are from God and to whom we return. What does that mean? Most of us, we say that expression when somebody dies. But that's correct, but it's limited. That is not the only time you say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Anytime things are not going your way, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, in the sense that it's no big deal. This payment doesn't go through, this guy doesn't invest in me, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, I'm going back to God. This is just a drop in the bucket, like it's nothing to me. Like this in the face of infinity is zero, right? And so it's just really about how do I see everything in this dunya, everything in this world demands your attention. Why? Because if your attention is on these distractions, it can't be on God. Unfortunately, we're one-dimensional beings. That's how God created us. If my attention is on, oh my God, I'm not going to make payroll this week. Or, oh my God, my boss gave me something and I'm really trying to get promoted and now I'm stressing out, right? Well, my mind is not with God. And the matrix, this world, this lower life wants you to be hypnotized by it. So what entrepreneurs have to do is to remember you were created on this earth to be a Khalifa of Allah, to be a representative of Allah on earth, not necessarily to make a buck. And so as things are going up and down, of course you are in this journey, right? But you don't take it so personal. It's not the end of the world, because the end is not the end of this company or of my life, but it's far beyond that. So once you take that perspective, it's easier said than done. And everybody knows this. There's nobody who is Muslim who listen to this is going to say, I've never heard that before. Not a single person. But how many people practice it? Either on their own, and that's wonderful. If you do it, keep doing it and help others, right? Or find somebody to help you practice it. And that's what I've seen. I've seen very few people say, I know, yes, I know, and I do. Most of us are like, yeah, brother, I know. But does your life look like the knowledge that the so-called knowledge that you hold inside?
No, it's very interesting what you're saying. Actually, I'm surrounded with a lot of Muslim entrepreneurs, alhamdulillah, and of course, it's it's very easy. I'm not easy, but it's to relate. When it comes to the tough things, you go back to God. Most of the time, is a way for you to remind yourself that, hey, you know what, nothing can be achieved unless you go back to Allah subhanahu. But what is it I want to share with maybe an audience who are non-Muslim, and because I have also a lot of non-Muslim coming to me, stressing out, and I'm like, man, what do you believe in? For me, it's alhamdulillah, it's kind of simple. I know I don't control all the outcome, and I know that Allah has a plan for me. And for the Muslim brothers, same thing. Whatever degree they are into their practice or stuff like that, they still have this kind of, sujood and going back to God in the middle of the night to get things done or during the day. But when it comes to non-Muslim, and James, there's a lot of people committing suicide literally because they have attached to nothing. And sometimes that's why when I have a non-Muslim actually founder reaching out to me and say, I'm having this problem, I have some kind of more compassion. I'm like, man, the guy might commit the act itself. I'm like, hey, take it easy. Do you have friends, family? You enjoy your life. This is just a business at the end, but I cannot fail. My parents' pressure, my peer pressure, they're living in this Instagram, in this, best image at all time, best. And I'm trying to break it down. I say, that's nothing. Just take it easy. This is nothing. When it comes to Muslim, I try to remind them of the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I say, what's your business? What's even this? Think about that. And the guy is like, boom, realizing death and realizing the death of the best of humanity. Subhanallah. So it rationalizes everything. You drop everything as Muslims. Okay, I got it. But when it comes to non-Muslim, share also something. I know you're coaching everybody, Muslim, non-Muslim alike, and how to help them out, not in a certain way.
I think both. I mean, at the end of the day, even with Muslims, right? Like, not every Muslim is going to be receptive to what I said. There's levels of receptivity, right? And so, but any Muslim that works with me, we have to go through the foundation first. Like, these are just because once you have the foundation clear, then we could talk about tactics. Like, there are things depending on your personality, depending on your business, that we can do, right? And so, but if you don't believe that, this is not that big a deal, like, there's nothing I can tell you that's going to help. So, but ultimately what we're trying to do with anyone is to reduce importance. You want to just reduce, I must make money, I must make payroll, I must think about anything you achieved in your life. There again, like, we don't understand, because we don't have a third party neutral person narrating back to us. So everything about our life is self-narrated. We have Morgan Freeman living in our head, embellishing everything about what we did in our lives, right? But if you had a third party neutral observer, if you were to look at anything you achieved in your life, you will find out that very likely most of the things that you achieved them when you were relaxed and actually not looking to achieve that thing. Marriage is a very good example. People try to get married in all sorts of ways, apps, this, that, whatever, and then they get married when they didn't try. Because that's just a fundamental law that the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us. And these laws work just like gravity. If I drop this pen is going to fall, whether I'm Muslim, whether I'm Christian, whether I'm atheist. It does not matter. When you turn away from this dunya is going to run after you. That's like in general, right? Like, so if I can get somebody to see that and just reduce the importance of what's happening. Oh, I must make money. I must sell. I must get an employee. I must. If we just reduce that importance, things tend to flow easier then. And so that's the first thing that we do, is really try to, and how do you reduce importance for entrepreneurs? Actually very easy. Here's one tip that you can do. I want you to look back on something that you liked to do when you were young. It doesn't have to be childhood, but it could be teenage, it could be young adult years, depending on where you are in life. Most of us had a hobby, something that we loved, that got squeezed out of us, kind of thing, because, you couldn't make money out of it. What are you doing? Why are you writing? Why are you doing this? If you're not doctor, engineer, you're a failure, right? Like that. Most people in the world, not just Muslims, have been dissuaded from doing something that they love. So what I tell people to do, go back to that, right? Go back to whatever it is that you would like to do, and do it every day, just because, with no agenda. You're not trying to sell it. You're not trying to monetize. You're not trying to turn it into a podcast. You're not trying to do anything. You're just doing it for doing it. And you have to do it every day at the same time. Just do it every day. And you'll be amazed at how effective this is. I'll give you an example. This is a Muslim guy, works for big tech, right? Works for big tech. Everybody thinks big tech, is a great place to get laid off, sadly for all, thousands and thousands of people, right? He gets laid off. And like many people who worked in comfortable jobs, they were complacent. They wanted to start a company, but again, too much knowledge, not enough action, right? So he had the knowledge, he put some things together, but he never launched his business. So he comes to me to work with me, and he was like, and he actually burned through his severance, because for 2-3 months or whatever, how much month severance he got, he was trying to do it on his own and was very depressed, very low. And, I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. He's just taken what he did for this big tech company. He wants to do it on his own. I was like, that's fine. You do your process. We could analyze it later. But I was like, here's what you want to do. Just take a step back. Just convince yourself, where does the source come from? Is it from your client or is it from God? He's like, from God. I was like, okay. Just work on that. And then the other thing, I was like, God willing, you will get a client, your first paying client in 40 days or less working with me. He's doing the work. He's like, but what shall I do? I was like, you need to work less. You're just running around in circles, relying on your own strength. Just relax. So there's more details to what it is, but I was like, one thing that you have to do, what is it that you like? He's like, I like calligraphy. I was like, okay, go order right now on a call. I was like, order right now calligraphy set. And I want you to start doing calligraphy. It was like, oh, money. I was like, listen, don't tell me money when you go every day to Starbucks, right? Don't drink coffee for a week. Go buy this. So he goes and buys the calligraphy, does calligraphy every day, right? And on the 40th day, the 39th day, he gets a client. From a way that he was resistant to getting a client from, because I kept telling him also, you have to keep an open mind and heart how God brings you the blessing. You cannot be so controlling. I'm only going to get funding if A16Z gives me the money, if Techstars give me the money. This very narrow way. You don't know how God is infinite and there are infinite ways. And the way that he got the client was in a way that he rejected previously. He's like, oh, I don't know. I don't think this is the way to do it, whatever. I was like, keep an open mind. You don't know. Sign down the line.
Mashallah,
on the 39th day.
Amazing, mashallah. Beautiful story, mashallah.
I think this has been fascinating. So I want to give you the last word, and also for you to tell people where they can find you, how can they reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you for whatever reason.
Well, I know where to find him myself, but go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a great.
He's volunteering to be your agent.
And so most people can find me on LinkedIn, James Fagmus. If you just search for me on LinkedIn, you could find me there. Feel free to connect with me. My coaching website is Practical Muslim, one word, practicalmuslim.com. There you can see all my coaching services and just pre-recorded courses. And really, this is for Muslims who are familiar with self-development, who are who are doing well and want to get better. Really, like that's what it's for. It's for, yes, I know I want to have a startup. I want to grow it to 1 million, 10 million, whatever it is. I know, but without sacrificing anything. Like, to me, my focus is on what I call sustainable success. Success that benefits everyone, not a zero-sum success where if I succeed, you fail, and if you fail, I succeed, etc. Like, no. I want everybody to benefit, the planet, the people, our families, without any sort of negative repercussion. And to do that, we have to have spirituality at the center. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to chat.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, James. It was a pleasure having you. I think this time went so fast, and it was great, all your insight, and looking forward to meet you again. And my salam to your family and kids, inshallah.